product provided by Nintendo. I absolutely adore Xenoblade Chronicles X. That is no secret, but there's been an element to it that I've grown to really and truly appreciate with this playthrough of Definitive Edition. The side quests. When I originally played the Wii U, I partook in them a little bit, but I never really dove that deep into a lot of the different quest chains. But with Definitive Edition, I wanted to do all the Affinity quests, and I'm knocking on the door of Chapter 12. I've done every Affinity quest I can physically do up to this point in time, and quite a few of them, hello Mia, require quite a few side quests to be completed as prerequisites. Now for a lot of people that may come off as off-putting. Oh, I have to do a whole bunch of different quest lines just to do the one that I want. That feels grindy, that feels tedious. I loved it. Hello everyone, I am Jmulls, and I think a lot of the true beauty of Xenoblade Chronicles X can be found in its side content, and the way that it develops and fleshes out the world of Mira. And it does such a great job of this, in my opinion. For so many games, it's very easy for side quests to feel kind of trivial and whatever. They may add a little bit to the world and to certain characters and all that, but they do end up feeling just like that, side content, largely unimportant to the grander scheme of things, and mostly just extra busy work for you to do to pad out game time if you want to spend a little bit more time in this world or learn a little bit extra. But the way they utilized here in Xenoblade Chronicles X to me is one of my preferred ways of going about doing side quests. They tell their own unique and compelling storylines, one of my favorites being Professor B's. This guy who's just a time traveler. Yeah, and you go on a whole, like, Back to the Future kind of arc with him, like building a DeLorean, and it's great. And when you beat that questline, you may go, okay, I have seen that story, I have experienced this storyline, I know these characters, I've had a beginning, a middle, and an end, we're good. But then he shows up later on in another side quest because you have done that quest line. The way they're able to weave these storylines together. So if you need to do a specific quest for an affinity mission, like for Murderess or for Mia, we'll get to her specifically later, you may be going, holy crap, look at all these prerequisite quests that I need to do. But like, to me, that's part of the charm, that's part of the beauty, that's part of the greatness of Xenoblade Chronicles X. Because the world feels interconnected. You can't tell the story of this alien world and humanity's desperate struggle to find a new home. You can't tell that entire storyline simply within the confines of a main storyline. And the way that Xenoblade X is able to utilize these side quests, bring them all together, it makes the world feel fuller, bigger, but also interconnected. And these are elements that are so pivotal, so important in my opinion, for when it comes to world building. Because you want the world to feel alive, and not just moving at the whims of a few main characters. You want it to feel as if it's a bunch of different moving parts going on their own. You want the world to feel alive, simply put. And I think Xenoblade X does a great job at that, because the main story itself is compelling, is interesting, a bit janky in places in terms of execution, we can all agree on this, but I think overall, I love it beginning, middle, and end. Where I used to think it began slow, I no longer think that with Definitive Edition. I just love a lot of elements of this game. And you pair that alongside great exploration, and what I've talked about before, where you're going around the world on foot, and then you get your Skell, and then later on you get your Flying Skell, and it breaks the game state up into these three different sections: the beginning, the mid game, and the late game. And the game evolves and changes over time as you're experiencing it more and more, and you're becoming more accustomed to how the game works. It'll throw a curveball at you, and if you do the side quest when you're kind of supposed to, they lean into that idea. A lot of later side quests take you to Cauldros because that's chances are when you're finally getting there. But I also think these side quests nail the tone of Xenoblade so well, and are able to mix in the comedic relief, the goofiness that you get with characters like the Manon or the Nopon, stuff like that. Or you have a slice of life adventure like shadowing Vandam as he goes about his daily activities. It's fun. But also, you get heart-wrenching, borderline tear-jerking moments in these side quests where your choices matter and can mean certain characters live or die. This kind of stuff, in my opinion, is so important. You need a balance, you need a mixture of different tones and feels when it comes to the way this story unfolds. Because if you only have the dark or you only have the silly, then you miss out on the storytelling potential of the other. But I think Xenoblade X does a pretty decent job of striking a balance between the two when it comes to its side content. And it's not like every side quest in this game is an absolute bang or anything like that, right? And sometimes the objectives can be kind of stale, like just go get a bunch of X item and Y item and then bring it back. And I will forever curse the quests that have me run around an area trying to acquire various pieces of gossip from NPCs that may or may not spawn in immediately, right? It's not perfect, but I think the jank is part of the Xenoblade X charm. And I think what the side quests are able to accomplish in Xenoblade X is justifying the tone and the severity of the main story. Let me explain. The entire main story is predicated around a simple objective. Find the Lifehold. If the Ganglion get to the Lifehold first and destroy it, that's the end of humanity. Like, that's what we're led to believe throughout the game. Likewise, if we can't find it in time, the battery will run out, and the Lifehold pretty much serving as, like, borderline as incubation chamber for humanity. If it goes offline, then all of humanity goes alongside it because we're just a bunch of robots in Xenoblade X with mimiosomes. So it's a race against the clock. It's a dark and macabre backdrop of humanity trying to desperately survive and also, in a way, find itself after the destruction of Earth. And the side quests lead into that tone. We can laugh and be goofy all we want, but there's a lot of side quests in this game that are absolutely dark. And it goes to show just how brutal the world of Mira is and how unforgiving it is. And, like, how powerful we can become as the player. It's easy to just, like, write off a lot of the challenges in Mira because our experience isn't, like, representative of the, like, in-lore canon experience that a lot of people are experiencing. But, like, people die. The Prone and the Ganglion are brutal. And there will be side quests and affinity quests where you pal around with various party members, and Prone will just, like, execute characters that your party members, like, really love and appreciate as, like, members of their own squads. They just get executed in front of them. It shows the brutality of not just the Prone but the Ganglion, but also just of Mira on the whole. Like, that one side quest chain that takes you to the water purification plant that has been overrun by parasites, and you're fighting monsters trying to just, like, piece together what happened until you discover, oh, the monsters we have been fighting were actually people the entire time because they became infested by this monstrosity. And, like, your choices matter, and they can be kind of memey, right? Like, oh, do you let this character take a shower or not? Because if you let them take the shower, they're going to die because, surprise, they're infested with a parasite that, like, grows and blossoms when it's in contact with water. That's, like, a rough TLDR of that questline. But, like, that's a great example. Same thing with, like, the pig quest early on. Do you let a bunch of baby pigs live? If you do, well, the world of Mira is harsh and full of terrors. They're not gonna come by having imprinted on you. No, they're gonna grow up to be hell beasts and eventually kill a guy. Welcome to Mira. The world is brutal, and it's out to get you and out to get everyone else. It's survival of the fittest. And sometimes you have to be cruel, and sometimes you have to be able to put the pieces together, because the game's not gonna hold your hand every step along the way. And I think one of the beautiful elements of Definitive Edition for Xenoblade Chronicles X is that it knew what elements to streamline without taking out the texture that Xenoblade X has. They may show you specific mobs in the world that you have to kill for quest objectives nowadays, but the game is not going to flash up on the screen saying, hey, if you hit this option, someone's gonna die. It'll give you a few hints, but you have to be paying attention. You have to keep your eyes peeled and go, hey, wait a minute, something ain't right here. The game will also test your knowledge in other ways. Maybe you're navigating someone who is behind enemy lines in Caldros, trying to get them to safety. Do you remember how Caldros is laid out? Do you remember where the Nopon camp is? Can you guide them there? Or are you gonna guide them to their death? I like how your choices feel as if they matter. I have to feel as if I have to be engaged with what's going on in side quests. A lot of the time, and in a lot of games, I become a bit disinterested with what's going on in side quests because I don't believe anything matters, because it's just a side quest. That's not the case with Xenoblade X. And by simply putting myself in that mindset, I become more engaged and more enthralled in what's going on. It's something that is subtle, but I think it plays a massive factor for a lot of people. And I think it's one of the reasons that Xenoblade X is regarded as having the best side content in the series. It's not just in terms of the execution of, like, the mechanics of what's going on or the wealth and breadth of content available to you as side content in Xenoblade X. It's the mindset the game puts you in to better receive and become more interested invested in that side content, and to largely forget that it's side content at the end of the day because it's so well told, it's so interesting, that it feels like main story in of its own. And then maybe it ties together with an affinity quest, which adds even more legitimacy on top of what you're doing. I love how all these quests feel as if they can connect to each other at a moment's notice. The whole storyline with the Definians, you barely ever see them, if at all, in the main story, but they are such a massive pillar of this game and the story going on in the side content. And they find their tendrils in like so many different quest chains. I love that kind of stuff. I think the Mia questline is an excellent example of this. It is a massive quest chain because she is one of the final party members you can recruit in Xenoblade Chronicles X, but they don't tell you exactly how to do it. But you essentially have to follow this character Mia on her journey across all of Mira. You help her start out as she's going off on her own because she believes in herself more than like how she's being treated. So she just goes off exploring the world of Mira. You catch up to her in each of the zones. It's pretty funny. Like, I like the character. She's goofy and like largely incompetent throughout a lot of it because in a way she's like following in our footsteps because the main story is taking us to all these different zones, and then we see Mia and how she reacts to all these different zones until eventually she's added to the main party and we realize, yo, she's actually kind of capable. Like, that's the strange thing. It's just she's pretty goofy, but like it works. And then the funny thing is, the final quest to actually unlock her, she is hiding in a cave that requires the completion of this massive questline with the Definians. Like, there's a lot of prereqs to this thing, because you have to do the final quest in that chain to unlock this cave system. And it's a really cool and emotional questline that expands the world, and you get a little bit of a reward with the Mia stuff being comedic relief afterwards. You don't have to recruit this character. Like, you don't have to. But, like, Mia serves to just help flesh out the world, add more identity to, like, various locations and to various, like, indigents that you may stumble upon throughout Mira. I don't know, maybe it's just because I love this game so much that stuff like this really hits, but I think this is, like, a good little microcosm example of what side content, when done well in a game, can really add to the overall experience. There are side quests that add a bunch of good emotional moments and scenes to various locations and to various characters you may have been, like, unsuspecting of before, but also there are side quests and chains and moments that add levity, that add comedy, that add a lighthearted touch to these zones as well. And by having both in equal measure, or being able to properly understand when you need more of one than the other, it gives the world of Mira, in my opinion at least, a multi-dimensional feel to it. It's not just one thing. It feels like this living, breathing world, delivered with the characteristic charm of Xenoblade Chronicles X. And I think with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and help support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Leave a comment down below with what your favorite side quest chain in the game is. I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear your perspectives. And tell me why it's the Vandom Slice of Life arc, because let's be honest, that one's amazing. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe. Have a great day. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.